Hi, my name is Lee Phillips, and we're here with Amazing TV. Today's guest is amazing fine art photographer Alexandra Catiere. Welcome.
Thank you, Leah. It's good to see you also.
Yeah, it's great to see
Thank
you
you.
as well. Yeah, so let's go into how did you first discover fine art photography? What made it feel like the right medium for you?
Well, it's a good question. I was in the painting before. As a teenager, I wanted to be an artist. But then there was a drama, personal drama, and I gave it up and switched my interest to foreign languages. And in the meantime, I was working on television, doing some videos, writing for papers. So journalism was next to me also. And and after my studies, I got a chance. Life gave me a chance to try to move to the States. And I thought, what I'm going to do there. So I wanted to have some skills under my belt that won't depend on my language, on my culture, on my background. And photography seems to be like a natural skills.
Mm.
It was always nearby. I thought it's quite complicated, and I had some friends who were doing photography, but mostly weddings and cars and products. And I thought not exactly what I wanted to do and what kind of photography I want to do. I didn't know. So I went to the library and I started to look through books on history of photography. And I discovered the first photography of the 19th century, badly reproduced in these old books. But I thought, wow, this is the photography I like, and this is something that I would like to do. And to do that, I thought I had to get an old camera. So my first camera was a large format camera, a wooden one that I started to learn to manipulate and actually learn photography with this camera. And since then, what I love is to photograph people I know and who accept that I photograph them, uh, and to do still lifes and landscapes. So I'm with my large format camera, and it takes time. And what I love the most is to print. I guess printing is something that drawing with light and making pictures, images, that's doesn't necessarily um, has nothing to do with the reality. So you're really in the creation, in the darkroom, rather than in reproducing of the reality. But as far as the portraits is concerned, I'm quite skeptical about the English verb to shoot. I
Mhm.
don't like to shoot people. I like to take pictures of people. And to me, to take a picture of a person is an act of affection and love and attention to this person. And this is something that I always had, and I appreciated to with photography. Yeah, when I discovered photography, it seems to be like a natural tool to me to be around people that I know and I love, and just to take distance, to be on the distance, not like being involved, being in the moment, and at the same time being outside of it. This is what I like. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So what truly inspires you when you are creating your work?
Inspiring nature inspires me a lot. Life, people, painting. Still, I'm very sensible to art and music. Yeah, not very much photography, to be honest, but
Mhm.
other forms of art. Yeah,
Mhm.
life, of course.
Yeah. Are there any moments from your childhood that you think that you draw into your work now?
It's an interesting question because I think when we photograph, we almost recollect memories.
Mm.
I have sometimes an impression that the images are already in us, and what we look for with the camera is something that we already know, and we
Mhm.
are just trying to find form for it. So I guess when I photograph, I recollect and I remember pictures, for example, time that I spent with my grandmother in the train, a local train, who was going very slowly, and then the night falls very early. And you
Mhm.
just look through these windows because we didn't have telephones, and even books I didn't read at that time. You just look through the window, and behind is darkness, but you're kind of imagining pictures behind and waiting for some light, because when the light comes, it means there is the station coming up, or the city, or the town, small town. So I remember very much this moments of looking, gazing through the windows, and surprisingly, I always find these images in my pictures 40 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I actually do see that too as well with your work. I see that you're using a lot of light and a lot of dark too as well, and like you're like composing a lot with like shadows and stuff too as well. So can you explain a little bit how do you come up with, I guess, creating this very bright over like exposure that I've noticed in some of your pictures too as well, which I actually really do gravitate to when there is like this big contrast. So can you go a little bit into like
You
into
know, I guess my ideas, if I can call it ideas, come from material. I
okay.
guess when I'm in the darkroom, uh, the, the material itself speaks to me, and I'm in a dialogue with it, and I'm open to it. So
Yeah.
sometimes I have accidents, sometimes I was lucky to have, when I was in New York, to have a good to have good skills in black and white printing, and I was assisting good printers like Chuck Kelton and Brian Young, my love. And then when I worked for Irving Penn, I was also in the darkroom most of the time. So I know how to make good prints, but I
Mm-hmm.
like to break these rules, and I like to be free in the darkroom and just to experiment. And
Mm-hmm.
this experimentation and this openness to all kinds of accidents, using old paper, chemistry, just doing like being in the kitchen actually, when you cook, when you know the basics, but you still want to do something personal and different. So this is what inspires me, and this is how actually the pictures are born.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. I actually remember being in the dark room because when I first was starting to learn photography myself, I took a class and we were in the dark room. And I think that was the most fun, one of the most funnest parts about being in the dark room. You can kind of really just like explore and see what do you want. If you want to take out the actual image faster than normally, and then sometimes I'll like leave it in there way longer than what you're supposed to, and I was like, "I'll just see what I get," you know? So it's just
Mm,
very experimental feeling when you're in there and you kinda just using your intuition and stuff like that too as
exactly,
well. So,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. No, it's a great place, and I noticed it this year. I was doing some workshops in the it's like hospital where teenagers live who has some psychological problems, and we set up a dark room there. And
Okay.
I noticed how good they are in the dark,
Yeah.
with this water running and just small group with the red light. And it's very calming, and you kind of get back to yourself. It's not like you're in front of the computer all day long, or uh, even under the sun. We did some cyanotypes under the sun. It was a good like the result was great, but they really appreciated to be in the dark room. So I think there is something very sane and meditation kind of place to be. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. So going back to Irvin Penn, so What was it like being Irving Penn's assistant, and what lessons have you learned from him?
Well, it was a great experience. It was a great experience. I had a friend from Netherlands who was coming to New York, and
Mhm.
every time he was assisting some photographers, and I was like, "How did you do that?" Well, just call. And I didn't know that it's that simple, and I didn't know many contemporary photographers. So I just called the studio of Irving Penn. I knew some of his still lifes and portraits, and they answered me and asked me to send them a fax. So I sent them a fax with a simple resume. I didn't have much to say. Um, and 6 months later, they called me and asked me for the interview. And I guess they needed someone who knows how to print. And that was my advantage. But after the interview with Vasilius Zatse, who was a studio manager, he invited me to the office of Mr. Penn. And when I opened the door and I saw an old, simple man in front of me reminded me of my grandfather somehow, and I was so disappointed and so pretentious. And I think it was the worst interview that I had. I left the office, I cried for 2 days. How pretentious I was, how ambitious I was. And I realized that I was in front of a great man, and my behavior seemed to me so obnoxious. So I was very surprised that they called me up and
Mhm.
asked for the trial period. And the rest of the year, I was on their service. It was like at the monastery. You work for someone you admire. There was no music. It was like in this silence, you do your work and you could cut the canvas for 2 days, but you do it well. And what was amazing about the atmosphere of the studio
Mhm.
is the respect to small task, big task, whatever you do it the best you can and the way it used to be done before. So there is a way to put a cup of tea. There is a way to cut this or do this. And it was a great school to follow this pattern, and I never regret. I remember being such obedient. I never worked for somebody else after. It was my only professional experience being having a salary and work for someone. But I never regretted a single day. And I was able in the evening to do my work, and I knew that this experience is temporary, but I very much appreciate it and thankful and grateful to to Vasilius, to Mr. Penn that they accepted me, took me in spite of my big ambitions and pretentious behavior on the interview.
I am sure you did an amazing interview with him, and that was the reason why he probably wanted you to be a part of part of the, like you said,
Me, but inside I felt bad.
yeah, yeah, I know, yeah.
Mm.
Um,
And I think the great men who look so humble and simple,
mhm.
they are the greatest.
Yes, yeah, they
Yeah.
are, of course. So was there any other like takeaways from Irving Penn that actually may have changed or added to your work, do you think, now looking back?
It's hard to say because I was very attentive when he was looking through his contact sheets. I
Mm,
was very attentive to see how he works with the model.
mm,
And of course, I kind of absorbed all that. Um, and and it's probably took me time to be more free during the photo session. I felt like at the beginning more like sculpting images like he does,
Mhm.
rather than being just spontaneous. And in my nature, I'm more spontaneous, so I like change the distance. I like look closer to the person or far away, but I like to kind of be around him in a more uh, uh, life way.
Mhm.
He was like he always kept a distance. He was also alive, but in his way, of course.
Mhm.
Sculpting people in front of him in his way. It took me time to find my way of taking pictures, especially portraits. I have to admit that we live in a different society now also. This generation of photographers were paid by Condé Nast. They have unlimited budget for film, for whatever they need. They have studios that were paid by Condé Nast. We live in a different situation now, photographers nowadays, and of course, even if like yeah, of course, digital camera allows you to not count how many pictures you took, but sometimes you took too much, and then it's hard to edit. So film kind of has a good quality of that you run out of film, so you have to stop. Film obliged you to stop,
True.
but also you stop because you know that you took a picture, you have a picture, you have this portrait. And he didn't take that many pictures. I remember many film was left behind and after a photo shoot. Yeah. But it was a different time, I guess, and we work differently now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think with film, you have to be more like intentional. And especially when I was doing New York Fashion Week one year, I actually met a fellow photographer and he does film. And with
Mm,
him, he's just like, I take my time. Like, I want to live in the moment and I want to take the picture that I feel like that I really love instead of just taking a lot of photos, and I get that when you're more intentional and then you have to listen to yourself like when you already have the shot, like, okay, now I'm overdoing it. I need to stop. So I'm not sure
exactly.
how like you feel. Are you more like intentional when you're shooting or
It's very much true that with the film, you're in the moment,
Mhm.
not just checking whether you have a picture or not, because photographing digitally, especially in fashion, all the team is behind the screens and they give you their comments. And nobody cares about the model because everyone cares about the result. And
Mhm.
I think it's a pity because you have to be with the person in front of you. And
Mhm.
of course, you could change your way of working even digitally, but film somehow allows you to be in the moment with the person you photograph and
Mhm.
don't care and don't listen to anyone who is behind you, who is giving you some comments or even telling you, oh, that's great, or we already have it. No, you're in the moment, you're making a picture, and we'll see the result in a few days when we develop the film. And it was a different way of working, gosh, truly.
Yeah. Has there been any moments in your career where an image surprised you or taught you something that you weren't expecting?
I realize, but it's not about the images, it's more about prints.
Mm-hmm.
I
Prince.
think prints have some vibration and depends on I remember, for example, an exhibition I saw in New York at ICP of Cartier-Bresson, and it was small prints of his work made by him. And he always admitted that he is not a good printer. He always saying in his interview that he was someone who likes to shoot and not to cook. But nevertheless, when he was preparing his trip to New York, he printed small prints of his work to show around that became a part of the scrapbook that was published later on by Steidel. So I'm looking at these small prints, imperfect, but so beautiful by itself. There is something behind, vibration, light, I don't know. And next to it, there is a modern big print of the same picture that seems flat to me. And I realized there is something in handmade prints, life. There is life behind, and sometimes I don't feel this light and this life and this vibration in modern work and modern prints and digital prints. I think there is something still in handmade stuff which is very like I'm sensible to it. I'm sensible to some paintings that are really like there is nothing, but there is something, and you feel this vibration from the canvas, and the same with the photographic images. Of course, there are some like pictures, strong pictures that stayed in our mind that everybody knows that I admire life of photographers, some of the photographers, of course. Yeah, as far as answering your question about images, so it's mostly print that surprised me sometimes. Mm.
Okay. Do you think your work is more about asking questions or offering answers?
I think um, me, myself, and we all ask the questions. I ask the questions. Um, so I don't know about the audience if what they feel, but I guess try to what I like in photography is to invite to question or to ask the questions. Yeah, what it is exactly, whether it is a day, a night, whether it is a man or a woman. I like to ask all these questions also, um, apart from others, of course. But this is something, this ambiguity and this um, something mysterious about the pictures, and at the same time making pictures that stay in your mind and remind you of something else. I think looking at art is always a dialogue.
Mm,
So I had one intention, but the people who look at it have their intention. And I like when the pictures are not dominating you and don't tell you what it is, but either open your heart and
mm,
communicate with you. And
okay,
this is something I think I would love to make this kind of picture that communicate with others.
okay. That's beautiful. Do you begin a project with a clear concept, or does your ideas unfold as you are working on your images?
I'm very bad at writing statements or applying for projects. I'm in
Mm,
front of the page and I
mm,
don't know what to write because I've never been to this place. Or even if I study the subject, I know that when I arrive, it will be very different. So I like the residency or the grants when you can be open to the situation. I guess when I arrive and I'm in the moment and I'm meeting people and I'm talking to people, I usually find the subject
mm,
and find what I want to photograph. My question is always how to photograph it because what to photograph is quite clear: people, landscape, nature, still lifes. But how to photograph it and what you want to say with this and what is the um, message behind. This
mm,
is something I guess is much harder to find.
mm,
But it's a challenge and it's interesting and to explore the world through photography by making pictures. Yeah.
So, how do you see the role of fine art photography evolving with our, I guess, with our digital images and our Instagram, and especially with like AI taking over? And I just feel like with I think there is a point where people will feel like we want to see stuff in person as opposed to seeing stuff on our phones or on our computers. And I just wanted to get your point of view of that, being just from the fine art world and photography. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. It's a good question. And I guess, and I believe there is something human in whatever we do manually.
Mm-hmm.
And if we stay human, if we stay sensible to real thing, if we stay with each other rather than on Zoom all the time, if we communicate with each other, if we communicate with nature, if we communicate with life in general, we'll keep being sensible to real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, photography it's not only illustration. Art is not only illustration. You cannot just drop ideas and get a picture,
Mm-hmm.
and this picture will be cold and empty to me. So I believe, I would love to believe that there is still future for handmade fine art photography um, that speaks to the soul rather than to your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hope that we all keep being spiritual creatures who who don't do just shopping and Instagram and whatever we do to promote ourselves, but we create something with your hands and with our souls and with our blood and with our flesh, and other people will feel it.
Yes, yeah, I think so too as well. I feel like we're probably going to get to a point where it's going to be very fascinating, and to the point where just like, wait a minute, we feel something's missing, the actual human element of everything, you know? So that's like one thing that I've been like thinking about. Like, yeah, it's cool to see all of that stuff, but like we're gonna miss the human element of everything too as well. Um, has there been an image of yours that you thought something unexpected about being human to you at all?
It's all about love, I guess. I remember there is an Italian painter that I admire a lot, Giorgio Arandi,
Mm-hmm.
um, who was a simple man living with his sisters in a house, painting the same bottles for 15 years of his life, the end of his life. Um, and I remember I read somewhere that he had a friend who came visit him, and he saw these old brushes on the table and wanted to take one. He said, "No, don't take it. We'll bury them." And I realized that if he bury his brushes, he has such particular attitude, and I think this particular attitude is the attitude full of love and affection to what he do and what he paint and how to he painted. I guess if we feel our work and our life with this love to what we do, it's there'll be future. There is something very yeah, this passion, this affection.
Mm.
I think it's very important to love what you do
Yeah.
and to put your heart in it, and the rest doesn't matter because everything goes by, and we will all come to the same end. But of course, it's very idealistic to tell it, and this is something that I tell to myself from time to time. But the rest of the time, I'm also disappointed and frustrated, and looking for the ways, and looking for making money, and being in this kind of realistic world.
Yeah.
But ideally, I would like just to do what I love, and be grateful to this opportunity to still doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you too as well. My last question is, what's next for you artistically?
Yeah, I'm working on a project right now. It's a good residency that I did on this in France, next to Bordeaux. I'm not allowed yet to communicate the details of it, but there'll be a book and there'll be an exhibition. And I was glad to find a form. It was challenging because you're in a close territory,
Mm.
uh, geographically, and you're kind of yeah, limited, and at the same time free and to do whatever you want with in good conditions. And
Mm.
and yeah, now my questions are how to print it, how to scan them, how to make a book. So more like practical questions. But the work is there already, and I'm quite happy with what I did. I'll show it next time.
Of course, of course. I would love to see it. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with us and Amazing TV. And it's been a pleasure talking with you, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
The same, Leah. Thank you.